Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In case you didn't happen to catch the news, there was a big announcement today that the next Age of Empires 2 DLC is going to be another installment of the single-player focused Chronicles series centered around Alexander the Great. The topic of this one wasn't really a surprise, and after how well the first entry of Chronicles was received by the single-player community, this was pretty obviously coming at some point. But we now have a release date of October 14th, as well as a trailer, screenshots, and more information about what it entails. So let's take a look at everything we know so far. First off, the three civilizations are going to be Macedonians, of course, along with Thrace and Puru. Thrace is an interesting one, as in the grand scheme of Alexander's conquests, they weren't that powerful, but were his first test as a leader, so through them he established his early credibility, and narratively I think it makes total sense. There's a definite Greek style to the architecture and units, but maybe a bit rougher around the edges, and more adapted to their hill country. The description talks about the Ramphia warriors, and generating gold from combat being a unique quality. They seem to have an infantry and skirmisher focus, and are mostly there for young Alexander to beat up on, though apparently they get one mission of their own, where you get to play them firsthand and get their perspective on things. The second new civilization you'll encounter is the Puru, as the Indian stand-in. They have an elephant and archer focus, and since these civs will never be in ranked, they can have some fun with the elephants, which almost look like elephant lancers to me. I love they're creating brand new architecture sets, and not just reusing the Indian architecture set from the base game. The third civ, of course, has to be Macedonians, who combine ultra-long pikes with strong cavalry, and the trailer shows a couple of different cavalry units throughout, as well as those two core units fighting together. The big picture is this is a single-player focused DLC, much like Battle for Greece, with 18 missions, 16 of which you play as Alexander, and historically would have gone through the order of fighting Thracians, Greeks, Persians, and then Indians. Like the first Chronicles DLC, they're embracing the idea of customizing your run and making lasting choices that affect later missions, with 16 bonus units to unlock and 4 bonus techs that you can use in later missions based on what you choose. I like the idea of having a limited number of options from units you encounter to mix and match in your armies, and they sort of did the same thing in Battle for Greece, though in that case it was mostly just picking your bodyguard units if I remember, and I'm glad to see they might even be expanding that idea, which I think adds a bit of replayability. It really feels like the first Chronicles campaign was setting the stage for this one, as they can reuse the Greeks and the Persians again, and in a way this allowed them to go so large in scope the second time. The trailer is pretty fast-paced, but will freeze frame on a couple of interesting shots. They seem to show recognizable historical battles at times. Starting off, we have a battle here between the Macedonians in purple and Thracians in green, with a Thracian unique unit holding their distinct historical weapons called the Falx, while on the other side, we see some of Alexander's companion cavalry flanking, in addition to a unique twist on the bombard cannon that's a bit more period appropriate. In the next shot, we see what might be from the mission where you play as the Puru, which they describe as giving an Indian perspective on events leading up to or involving Alexander's attempt to conquer them. In addition to elephants, it seems like camels are making a comeback and adding more cavalry diversity to the campaign. The next shot shows us Macedonians fighting the Puru, this time with their unique archers shown. These are apparently bamboo longbows, which they describe as devastating, so if you like archers, this may be a civ you want to try in single-player skirmish, even outside the campaign setting. Another shot answers a question I had going into this, which is how they're going to handle Thebes, and was sort of an infamous chapter in Alexander's early legacy, and worth covering, but not necessarily important enough to make their own civilization. These units actually have the Theban symbol on their shield, so there may be Athenians as a baseline, but come with a custom unit to make them distinct, which I think really speaks to the level of detail here. If you have any historical knowledge of what's going on, you'll probably catch some of these sorts of things. And if not, you can still enjoy the gameplay and learn more about history's most accomplished 32-year-old of all time. We also get another twist on an older siege unit with a unique style of onager. Again, these are just really nice details, where they could have gotten away with a regular-looking onager, but are trying to make things more visually interesting. A few other moments that jump out, probably from the campaign, include Alexander storming some beaches of a river against the Puru, which have not just their bamboo longbows, but a unique infantry unit as well. And then probably straight from the campaigns, what might be the Battle of Gaugamela. This is the big one against Darius III, where by winning this battle, Alexander secures a huge part of the Persian Empire. This is probably only a small part of that battle, and just Alexander's detachment, but was obviously going to be in the campaign somewhere as maybe his most famous battle, and certainly the Alexander movie went all out in showing it. We also have a nice shot of the Lancer elephants, and again, since this is all just for single player or unranked custom lobbies, we don't have to worry if these units are balanced or not, since they'll never be in ranked. The devs are incredibly clear that all these civs are for single player only, and none of the 3 civs are going to be in ranked. If you're only into multiplayer, then this DLC has no effect on you, other than continuing to fund balance patches and keeping the servers up. If single player is your focus, then it's 18 new missions, following in the footsteps of Battle for Greece. If that was any indication, this should have high production quality narration, new music, new mechanics, and more choices and unique units to experiment with in single player than your typical AoE2 DLC. This is all coming out in just under a month and is $15 US, though is currently 15% off through a pre-order. If you enjoyed the last one, this looks to be a similar experience and level of quality. The last Chronicles DLC was surprisingly good, and actually the highest rated Age of Empires DLC on Steam as far as I know. So there's definitely an audience for this, and so far looks to be the follow-up I think fans were hoping for. I'll of course be covering it a bit more once it comes out, but that'll do it for this one. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.